What is going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Yamaha R3 and my experience of owning this bike for 2 months, whether I think it's a good or not good beginner bike. And before we actually talk about beginner bikes and what's good, what's not good, I want to say this: there's no perfect beginner bike for everyone. Someone's going to enjoy a cruiser as their beginner bike, someone's going to be good off on a 300 like this R3 that I'm on, or a 600, or even a 1000, right? 1000 is pushing a little bit, but what I'm about to talk in this video I think will kind of open up your eyes a little bit to what's the best beginner bike for you and what you need to look out for when getting your first bike, beginner bike, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Well, first let's talk about some of the things that I really like about this bike and some of the things you should really take into consideration when buying a bike. First of all, this bike, for a sports bike and it being my first bike and me being still pretty young, the insurance on this bike is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you, compared to some of the other bikes, I tried to get an insurance for a I think it was a 2012 R6. It's an older bike, over 10-year-old bike, right? And the insurance was crazy. It was like 1.5K a month, some ridiculous. Like, and that, you kind of start to understand why people choose to not run insurance on bikes when it's something ridiculous like that. Like, right, people, the risk to reward here is just ridiculous not to take, right? But yeah, first being the insurance is very cheap for a sport bike, and what position I'm in. Another thing that I really love about this bike is that it's very forgiving. So you could roll on the throttle, accidentally do something stupid, right? And the bike really won't do anything too crazy. Like, you won't fall off the bike, right? You won't loop the bike if you just roll hard on the throttle. Alright, what are you doing? Are you coming out or not? So yeah, the bike is really forgiving, and as a beginner, you definitely want something like that. You don't want to accidentally roll on the throttle and loop your bike, right? Especially, like I said, when you're new, you're still getting used to everything. You're still trying to figure out how hard you need to accelerate out of turns and all that kind of stuff. Also, one more thing I was going to mention that's good about this bike, I just remembered, is that the bike is, since the bike is cheap and it's your first bike, a 300, you're obviously going to want to upgrade. So when you drop it and, you know, you need to replace it, you're not going to be as sad, you know, to get it fixed up and all that, because you know you're going to upgrade the bike, right? It's not the end of the world to drop a 300. As well as the parts for this bike, like if you do drop it and want to fix it up, like the bracket is bent or something, it's going to be much cheaper than for a more expensive bike, right? Gotta make sure there's no popos behind me or on me. But yeah, besides that, I really couldn't tell you anything else that I really like about this bike. Obviously, I enjoy the bike. It's my first bike. Any first bike that you get, you're gonna enjoy it regardless of what kind of bike it is. But the point of this video is kind of just to educate you what I learned from owning an R3, because it's really commonly spoken about as the best beginner bike slash sport bike, right? Let's be honest, everyone who's watching this video wants to get into sport bikes, wants to get into racing or whatever, you know, ripping it down the highway and all that type of stuff. My next point is going to be stuff that I particularly don't really like about the bike, and the first one is going to be the power of this bike, especially once you get to the highway. Now, this bike, maybe top speed does around 180 max. The speedo sometimes shows 199, but I don't think that's actually, like, it doesn't do 199. Even the GoPro GPS shows around 180 as the all-out top speed of this bike. That's completely redlining it. Maybe going a little bit downhill, you could get like closer to 190, right? But yeah, at highways, this bike really doesn't perform, and if that's your main goal and main purpose of riding on the highway, you definitely want to get something. Oh, that was close. You definitely want to get something more powerful if you're going to be strictly going on the highway. If you're doing a little bit of city riding like me, if you live somewhere in the city, this bike is going to handle it much better. And another big thing for me that I notice that I don't like about this bike when I ride is that the gearing is really short. Like, I'll be in first gear trying to go from a red light, right, or a stop sign, and try to overtake some of the cars in front of me, and I'll run out of gear and I'm just redlining. I'm mid overtaking them, and the bike is just screaming like, right, waiting for me to upshift, which is obviously a thing that you will have to do on any bike, upshifting while overtaking. But it's just really annoying how short it is. Like, I see some of these 600s, 1000s going highway speed in first gear, right? I'm doing faster than this bike in 5th, 6th. So this will kind of bring me into the conclusion as to what it is you should look for while buying yourself a new bike or your first bike. The main thing, I think, for me was the budget. If you could pay 1.5K for insurance monthly, or you don't want to run insurance, right, which I wouldn't encourage, but if that's something you're planning on doing, then definitely don't get an R3. You could outrun cops in the city, but not on the highways, open roads, especially if they start chasing you. Yeah, you're not getting away. But yeah, the budget is the first thing that you need to look at. What is your budget? If your budget is good enough and you could afford the insurance and afford the fuel and all that, because the bigger bikes will take more fuel, believe it or not. So budget is the first one. If you have the budget, definitely go for something bigger, especially if you want to go on the highway. Like I mentioned previously, you want to rip through the highways, whatever, you know. This definitely isn't the most capable machine. However, it's a really great learning machine. All right, and another really important thing, maybe it's just as equivalent as your budget, is what your intentions are with the bike, right? If you're trying to do some city riding, this is a perfect machine. You're going to be having a lot of fun switching through the gears, especially through the city. Like, I noticed constantly switching gears, and it's fun to interact with the bike, right? That's the whole purpose of riding. That's what everyone enjoys doing, is interacting with the machine. If your intentions is to also have a little bit of stunt riding, this bike really isn't that powerful to lift up the wheel without doing clutch-ins. So wheelies are going to be a little bit more difficult on it. I'm actually planning to learn how to fully wheelie on this bike, and I'm going to upload a video. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely stick around. But yeah, I know that was a little bit of me ranting about this bike. Hopefully you kind of understood some of the things I find problematic and some of the things I really enjoy about this bike. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, comment down below. Also, hit me up on Instagram. I'm way more likely to reply on there, link in description. And with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing day, ride safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.